did?
Yeah, homeschool mom of 3.
Okay, well.
Remember all that stuff?
Okay, good evening. Thank you for joining us here at the Trailer Park Show. Uh, I hope you're keeping warm out there. And today we have some guests, and I'll just shift this over to you, Gary.
Yeah, thanks, Gavino. I'm very pleased to be able to introduce my friend Faith Bussey, who is as knowledgeable about state politics as anyone I know, and is in fact doing this for a living. She's working as a lobbyist. So we'll talk a little bit about the bills that she's working on, and we'll talk about some bills that she's interested in and not working on. And then I'll probably ask her questions about bills that she's not interested in, just to see what happens. Faith, welcome to the Trailer Park Show. I think Jennifer, you should introduce yourself. I'm Gary Teal, recently executive director of the Travis County Republican Party, and now still the treasurer of the Travis County Republican Party.
I'm Jennifer Drabbant. I am a teacher, and I am the president of the Austin Young Republicans, and I am a precinct chair in Travis County.
And mother of 2 little girls.
Yeah, I have 2 twin daughters that are 7. That's about it.
And Faith, you've got 3 kids and you're homeschooling.
But yes, we have 3 children that homeschool, and I do the precinct chair thing up in Tarrant County.
Right.
I'm the president of Citizens for Better Arlington, which is like a local group working on fighting nanny government at the local level.
Great.
And that's fun.
Great. And you've done a lot of writing. I think you've worked for the state party. Are you still doing some of that from time to time?
No, not really. I'm really happy with what we're doing, but I did communication for the party for about a year, and before that for some other more local publications.
Great.
So I do enjoy that.
Anything else you want our our television audience to know about Faith?
I don't know. What else did I have in my description that is interesting?
I don't know. I never found it.
Much.
I never found it. So you did talk about 3 or 4 bills that you mentioned. So let's talk about those.
Okay.
I mean, up until now, in Texas, occasionally some of our friends have even had this happen, where you do something that the authorities don't like, but even if it's just an offense where if you're guilty, you wouldn't go to jail, sometimes they will throw you in jail just because. And so I think there's a reform bill that's filed. Would you tell us a little more about, what the history of this? Has it been introduced before and failed, or?
So I actually don't know the history. Actually, yes, that has been introduced before and failed. It was stripped out of a bill from last session. It was called the Sandra Bland Act. But the actual part that would have prevented Sandra Bland from being pulled over in the first place was taken out. So HB 482 is, I think, the one I sent you that we are working on. And that one is a no jail for non-jailable offenses. So Class C misdemeanors.
What does someone do to get thrown in jail for
a
for a misdemeanor that wouldn't put them in jail?
So
That sounds it seems like it should be. I didn't even know that was a thing. Jail for non-jailable offenses.
Right. So
Okay.
for fine-only offenses. So the
Right.
2 things they can't arrest you for are speeding and open container. Everything else, if it's a blinker, if it's your taillights out, if it's what's another minor infraction, seatbelt,
Changing lanes without
changing lanes without not signaling within
Really?
1,000
They
feet,
can put you in.
they can put you under arrest
What?
and take you to jail.
Now,
Wow.
they arrest you if you resist arrest and try to run away, or I mean, pretty sure you still can't do that, even under any kind of reform.
Probably.
You can't make a break for it or try to outrun the cops.
Right.
You can't take a swing at a peace
No,
officer.
Yeah.
definitely not.
Do you know what it is that people have done to get put in jail for
So,
one of these things?
What I believe typically happens, and what happened in Sandra Bland's case, is they get pulled over for the minor infraction. The officer then has a hunch, and this is a word that they use often in testimony. We have a hunch that there's something more going on in the car, paraphernalia or drugs, whatever. And so they use the power of search subsequent to arrest. And so they arrest the person, they search the vehicle, and even if they don't find anything, they still have to book them because otherwise they just violated this person's Fourth Amendment rights. If they do find something, they'll book them for
that.
for the thing that they found.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense. Now, you've mentioned Sandra Bland a couple of times. Many people know that very sad story. Some people don't. Would you tell us, not the details and dates, but
details and dates.
Yeah,
so it's good. She was a woman who got pulled over for, I think, her taillight being out or not using a blinker or something like that, and then she was she gave the officer a little bit of lip, I think, and she ended up getting arrested. Do you know more about that?
No.
You look like you were going to say something.
No, I was going to ask you on the, what gave the genesis to this bill? I mean, the protection part of, did some senator or state rep son get busted or what? That's usually how they come up. Or who's sponsoring the bill?
Sophronia Thompson is
Okay.
the one who filed the bill.
Okay.
Republican Matt Krause has joint authored it. Republican James White has also joint authored
This
it.
in the House of Senate?
In the House.
In the House.
Yes.
And obviously they, I guess what's the intention of the bill to...
Well, ultimately it will be to not arrest as many people.
Okay.
So the officers can focus their attention on actual crime and not on things that really aren't hurting anybody else. So, and free up some jail space. That would be nice.
So it's the discretion for the officer?
Right now?
Yes.
Yes.
And this would make it...
This would take away the arrest powers in those particular instances for Class C misdemeanors. So, because right now the statute states that they do have the power to do that, and I believe there was a court case, Atwater versus Vista Lago, I think that's the name of it, where the Supreme Court basically said, because the statute says they have the power to do this thing, they have the power to do this thing. So they do it.
You said that it was pulled out last session?
Yes.
Do you know who were the
I don't.
The persons that caused it for it to be withdrawn?
I do not know
Or
that.
groups or whatever? Maybe
No,
the
it would
police unions?
well, the police unions are obviously against it, big time, but it would have been the senator or the representative who was, working on the bill. I want to say it was Whitmire, but I don't want to speak out of turn.
John Whitmire, Dean of the Senate,
Yeah.
Democrat.
Yes.
I just looked it up to make sure I had the facts right myself.
Okay.
Sandra Bland died.
Yes.
She was put in jail.
Oh, you missed that part. I know, because it was my first time hearing this story. Oh, wow. Because I was like, oh, that seems interesting.
So
Why was that?
She
Okay.
she committed suicide, hung
Right.
herself. There's controversy. There were lots of theories that somebody else hung her. or
And what did
something
she
like
get pulled over for again?
I don't know if there's a turn
Blinker or
signal
something.
or...
Oh my gosh.
So, you know what? I think it makes sense to back up one step and talk about the fact that I know you, as I know many Republicans, as being part of a criminal justice reform movement, which has a lot in common with goals that Democrats have.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as any issue that I know of, we have people on the left who want to change the laws, and people on the right, like the Texas Public Policy Foundation, Derek Cohen, doing a great job with Right on Crime. So this is an area where I think that I would say that there are a lot of people like Matt Krause who want to see the powers of the police reined in because they believe that individual freedom is a very great value. Now, this is different from right wing and left wing even 10 years ago, but certainly what I grew up with, there was the notion that the Democrats don't like the police and throw rocks at them.
Right.
And the Republicans just assume that anyone in authority needs to be
Worshipped.
obeyed.
Worshipped
Yeah,
and
and,
obeyed.
and not merely respected, because I think both sides, responsible people on both sides, agree that law enforcement and anyone else needs to be respected. And I've spent 30 years in Washington D.C. and have heard a lot about the talk that African American parents say they have to give their kid to say, be careful around the police.
Well,
don't end up dead.
Yeah, they actually introduced a bill last session. Oh, I can't remember what it's called. But now every high school freshman, they have to take a 3-day course within the first semester of them entering high school that teaches them how to interact with police officers and what's the right thing to do and not the right thing to do. And I didn't even know this was because that session I was following pretty closely, and I didn't even know that had passed. So when they, give me all these booklets, this is mandatory, every freshman now has to do it, I was like, what? I was there on this every day. How did I not catch this? So now every incoming freshman has to do that.
I actually think that's a little bit silly. We shouldn't have to pass legislation to mandate what gets taught in school.
Yeah, but if you don't when is it going to get taught? Like, I'm never going to teach that in an algebra class.
I taught that to my 2 children.
Well, yeah.
I think it just makes sense that when someone has a gun and they have permission from the government to use the gun,
to enforce every law.
Well, I think right now that, especially where I teach, so many of the kids, they see cops as awful, bad, and I know their parents have probably taught them that. For me and my daughters, it's a little different because their dad is a police officer.
Right.
So they see police officers as their friends. Oh, that's daddy's friend if we pass by a cop car. So that's a little different, but just with the type of kids that I teach, they see cops as the enemy and they can't be trusted.
I hope they learn that most cops are good people. If there are bad cops and if their rights are abused or something, they need to simply play along until such time as they can hire someone to help them.
Right.
Seek
These
redress.
kids, they still think that they can attack a cop. It's that bad. It's that bad. So we're trying to work against that and trying to educate them a little bit. So for our school, this is helping.
Yeah, I was aware of more than one case in D.C. where a child was expelled from school for physically assaulting an armed officer in the school building. And you just want to say, what were you thinking?
Yeah, there's one at our school.
We're off on a tangent here, but
I could go on with that all day.
Criminal justice reform is something that I think is very interesting to both sides, and there are several issues. This is one of them. No jailing for non-jailable offenses. Another one is the civil asset forfeiture reform, because right now, if the police believe that the money that you have in your car is not yours, they just keep it. They don't have to charge you with the crime. And this is horrible. I got to tell you, my very liberal son came to me one day and said, did you know that the legal case is the state against the $100,000 we found in your trunk. And that's the way it's styled in court. And again, they don't have to find you guilty of anything. They can just seize this money and they can use it for certain permissible purposes, like buying a great big new police car.
Or a margarita machine.
Well, did somebody buy a margarita machine?
Yes, they weren't supposed to.
They weren't supposed to.
But that happened.
I didn't believe him at first. And then I read it, and I had to go back to him just a few months later and say, the most conservative members of the United States House are introducing bills to put an end to this. And it's not like we're friends of criminals, but in this case, it's clearly a situation where I think if you were arrested and found guilty of breaking the law, then your ill-gotten gains probably should belong to the government. But if you're not even charged with
Mhm.
something. It seems crazy that they should. Are there other issues that you can think of, Faith, that are part of this criminal justice reform effort that unites the right and the left?
Absolutely, yeah. Repealing the driver responsibility program is a big one this
Okay,
session.
describe the driver responsibility program.
Okay.
It's
It's just a mess of surcharges and fines, and you get put into this program because it's supposed to rehabilitate you, and you just end up owing more and more and more as time goes on. So it ends up being its own form of debtor's prison at that point. So they want to do away with the surcharges and the high fines and the program altogether. But the profit from this program goes to funding the trauma centers in Texas. And that's a little bit problematic because
Well, they could find other ways to fund it.
they could.
But that is a very punishable penalty to put, you would think, in a free democratic society. Because one, and I'm talking about no insurance, okay?
Mhm.
And, okay, I pay the fine that year, whatever that was. I keep my insurance, I keep it, keep it valid throughout a year or 2 years. But I still have to pay the fine again,
Mhm.
3 more years.
Yep.
And I'm saying, wait a minute, isn't that double jeopardy or triple jeopardy,
Yes.
if you will? And it affects mostly poor people
Yes.
of all races, not just Latinos and of all races. People in the rural areas. It has a very, very big effect. And I know they tried it before. I hope they are successful. And what committee is that under? Transportation? So I've been trying to. I want to get involved in that one because it really, it hit me.
So
So I
could,
did the minimum, $10 or $15 a month, just out of the.
right.
But anyway,
I don't actually know which committee it's going to go through. It could be criminal justice. There's been some really weird ways that they're dividing bills.
Homeland
I've seen
Security
that.
Homeland
has
Security.
gotten some of these. Now, that brings up a much broader question as well. In a legislature, there are all kinds of parliamentary things going on and all this, and it's the Speaker of the House in Texas who pretty much decides which committee to give a bill to, and he pretty much chose the chairs of those committees. Now, in past sessions, that's been Joe Strauss. I know that when I moved back to Texas 2 years ago, I was really shocked to find out that the Republican majority put Democrats in charge of some of the committees.
Mm-hmm.
But in any case, that's what we do here in Texas. And so it's not surprising that some of the committees may have a philosophy of government that's very different from some other committees. So it depends on the future of a bill depends on which committee it gets referred to.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, and I have seen about how weird they've split up some bills and where they're getting sent to that I guess would have always been sent to the same committee, and this time it's going somewhere else completely different.
Yeah.
What's your feeling walking around in the Capitol building 2 or 3 days a week as you do? I know that when the session started and Bonin announced that he had the votes, way before the vote was taken, he said, "I've got the votes. I'm the new speaker." Everybody seemed to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Still going on.
Still.
Everybody's still happy.
Everybody's still playing Kumbaya. For now.
That's it.
yeah, because right now we're still at that infant stage of the session. So
Mhm.
especially
And
the new
also,
ones, especially the new ones are kind of like feeling around and learning.
Yes.
A lot of them are learning protocol.
everyone's kind of dialed it back after last session and just after the election last year, the midterms. I feel like everyone is just playing it nice because they're like, oh, I don't want to be nuts to go. So they're just, everything's great. Like, they're not going to say, it's great. It's great.
You'll
Like,
talk to a few people who don't think it's so great, but nobody's like fired that first shot yet.
Right,
We haven't had our
compared
Lexington
to-
and Concord yet.
that last session was a mess.
It
Compared
was.
to that one, this one is like,
But everybody
Wow.
else is pretty happy with the committees that bills are going to.
It's still early though.
It is. Yes, you're right. But like
We're
the
talking May or something and find out how friendly this environment is still
Right.
at the Capitol.
like the non-jailable offenses is going to Homeland Security. It's been referred there.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Who
but
knew?
like on mine, the issue that I was talking about on the surcharge program,
Mhm.
that would be under what committee? That wouldn't be Homeland Security. I
Um,
think that would be
could
transportation
be
or DPS.
transportation.
Yeah,
Could be DPS.
DPS, whatever they find. Yeah, I've worked in city halls and in county government positions. I've never worked at the state level, so I'm pretty sure that that's even overwhelming,
It is.
having to deal with governing the whole state.
I can imagine that's why I don't want to be a legislator.
No. Yeah.
I can say one thing about Speaker Dennis Bonnen that I've seen with my own eyes. I've gone to hearings, and sometimes they go very late at night. And we had the property tax reform hearings going on last week. I think it was Thursday night. Went past midnight.
Mm-hmm.
And in almost every hearing that I can think of that I've been in, suddenly the speaker walks in, sort of stands around behind the other members and says hello to them and has a couple of words with them. So, I mean, that's impressive to me.
Yeah. No, I
It'd be
agree.
tempting if you're speaker to say, I'm going to sit in my big leather chair, and if anyone wants to talk to me, they better get up and come see me.
Mm-hmm.
But he's circulating, and so I would say he probably knows a whole lot about the mood of the legislature, and I'm sure that he's being a good politician.
You know why we have a very kind, mild, calm session? This session?
Why?
Because there are a lot of marijuana bills being introduced.
Yeah.
They're having a lot of joint sessions, no pun
Oh
intended,
my
you know.
That's an intended pun.
That
But-
is
no.
an intended pun.
But like Cheryl Cole mentioned, I went to a talking forum where Cheryl Cole was there was hosted with the Texas Tribune, and she said, I filed the bill to decriminalize the penalties for marijuana, and she said, and then all of a sudden everybody wants to talk to me. I mean, my calendar's full of constituents wanting to talk to me about supporting this particular bill. And I know some Republicans have come up supporting the medical. So that's what I'm saying, and that might be the tone.
That is in our platform.
Yeah.
I would say.
So that and that's a reliever from the struggle of having to deal with the school finance one that's coming up.
Yeah, that would be.
School finance is the priority for the session, but yeah, let's talk about marijuana for a minute. 2 years ago, everybody was talking about the bathroom bills. And
Yeah,
there was a
that's
lot of
true.
stress about that.
Oh, that
And,
is.
Even a special session, didn't we do that?
Yeah.
Last June, we had the Republican convention, and a new platform was written, and a lot of the coverage coming out of that convention was focused on marijuana because for the first time, the Republican Party of Texas. Now, can you may not know the words of the platform. You were on the committee, right?
I chaired the criminal justice subcommittee, but I think the marijuana stuff went through H. Scott Appley's from SD11, which was
Okay, and is it medical marijuana only, or?
So no, there's medical marijuana, and there is a decriminalization plank that calls for, I want to say, $250 in fines for an ounce or less, something like that.
And the Texas YRs, we just added it as our fourth priority a couple of months ago, the decriminalization aspect. So we have 3 priorities, and then that got added on at the end.
So yeah, that goes back to making sure that police officers are using their resources wisely elsewhere.
And that platform plank has been turned into a bill, and it has been introduced. And
They were
and
as today.
Yeah.
It was HB 63.
Yes.
63.
It was they had a hearing on it today. So.
I registered for the bill.
Nice.
Oh, you were talking like you didn't know.
I don't want to speak
I was talking about the platform. I
Right,
wanted to speak to someone who was involved in the platform on the
could
committee
say,
and chairperson of a subcommittee. Gavino, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, guys. I was telling a friend of mine today that I was meeting with her because I'm on a scholarship fundraising campaign that recently I've had a lot of senior moments, and so if I don't mention something that comes to my mind and I continue following the conversation, all of a sudden it just went away, But I just wanted to say that having worked for an elected official, many of these laws change because either someone in the family or someone down the street or some principal's son or daughter in the same area got involved with that, and now it's not only one or two, now it's more. Like, it's kind of like, the kids today, and that's where a lot of these changes come in and why they come in. Because if you look at the 70s versus 2019, at the issue of it, and I mean, it's like a big old difference. And I always say that in our neighborhoods, your dealers, or at the grassroots level, are all minorities, right? Well, not all, but the majority in our area. Yet, in the places where it has been legalized, in the states where it has been legalized, you find very few minorities owning these places that are selling where it's legal.
Interesting.
So it said, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to talk about that because it's been on my mind for years. In D.C., we had medical marijuana, and they licensed 5 licensees to grow 99 marijuana plants each, because if you have 100, the feds get more interested in you. And no surprise, it was the well-connected people to the city council who got those 5 licenses. Typically, it was liquor store owners who had warehouses in the district. See, there's nowhere to build a new building in the district.
Right.
So they would move all their alcohol out to Maryland and then start growing marijuana in the city. This is a really, really important issue to me. I don't understand how it makes sense that today in D.C. you can take a note to one of the dispensaries, which is separate from the growing place, and you say, my doctor, it's not a prescription, but I have a note and I have glaucoma or cancer or something and I need marijuana. If they say, sorry, we've run out of this month's supply, then you drive maybe 3 or 4 blocks away and there's a kid on the corner and you say, I need some marijuana. Now, the marijuana on the street is much lower quality.
Oh,
I heard that, and I wanted everybody to know, and authoritatively. But if that kid gives you marijuana and you give them some money, suddenly there are 3 squad cars there.
Yep.
So the people who have the licenses from the government are doing the same thing. They're selling better marijuana. Look, I'm a capitalist. I think it's okay for people to get rich doing anything, and if you save up some capital and then you go into business, that's a smart thing to do. What I don't understand on this subject is how it makes any sense at all to say that everybody who has less than an ounce of marijuana gets a $250 fine the first 3 times. If they get caught a 4th time, they're in bigger trouble, but you get 3 passes if you have $250. But the one guy who sold those 100 people their ounce gets caught with 100 ounces, they're a drug kingpin. And electric chair is too good for those people because they're drug kingpins. And that does not make any sense to me. There's a financial transaction going on. There's a buyer on the demand side. There's a supplier on the supply side. And we're saying, okay, all you people who, you just want to smoke a joint and get in a hot tub and have a little fun with your pals and nobody's going to get hurt. But the truth is, there are hundreds or thousands of Mexicans dying every year to supply that drug to you. And even on our side of the border, there's a lot of violence, a lot of people being arrested. So that does not make any sense to me. I registered for the bill. If I had been able to give testimony, I probably would have said, this is a good bill, pass it. But if you suspect that this is only step one, I would say you're probably right.
Well, you know, like in everything, in those states where it is legal, as long as government gets their amount, you know, their cut, it's okay. Now, when you go to the street dealer's not going to go give the government or pay their taxes on what they sell. And that's another a difference in the marketing. I always say that our kids are smart, innovative, and creative because, you know, they know how to do marketing, planning, budgeting. But we just need to get them to concentrate that on something else instead of drugs, you know. But if you look at those skills that they have and just enhance them and turn them around, make them good working citizens. So, yeah, that's one thing that I notice is that, and they say that, oh, Mexico is so corrupt. Oh, they're so corrupt. In the U.S., it's the same thing. It's just, it goes a different route. In Mexico, if I get stopped, I get, you know,
Mordida?
I talk, you know, my mordida, $10, $15, and you move on. Here, I get stopped, I get a ticket, okay? I have to go to a courtroom, I have to go hear a judge, and at the end of the day, I get a fine. So which is more expedient?
Right.
The officer right here, and it's over, or here, you're gonna pay $100 fine, same fine, but here all that $100 goes to all this cost and
then you have to take off work, and like getting a ticket is a big old pain.
Yeah,
like the worst.
It doesn't stop at the fine, I should say.
Right.
Because then if you don't pay the fine, you get a warrant for your arrest, and then you can go to jail.
And that's
For the same
subsidizing
offense.
criminal system.
Yes.
That's what it is. It's subsidizing the criminal system because the biggest fear in any county, especially here, is to have close to an empty jail. Oh my God, what's going to do with the staff? Oh, we don't, you know, we're going to have to cut all these positions because we don't have customers anymore.
Right.
Isn't that a shame?
Because when I was at the county, that was, well, you know, the county, that's the biggest budget items that they have is the courts, the jails, the criminal stuff.
Sure.
And one thing that I can say from the 90s when we were there to today is a totally different approach in the criminal activities. You know, today the approach is kind of like, okay, well, let's find out why he or she did it. Was there a mental issue? Okay. Whereas in the past, hey, well, he's just a criminal. We're gonna throw you 15, 20 years, and you know, we don't worry about you anymore. And I think that's good in regards to the reform that we're going through. Is that you know, especially these ones that create these heinous crimes. I always become very curious what triggered off this person. You know, because 9 out of 10, everybody's, oh, they were so nice, and we waved at each other. You know, and then boom, it triggers them off. But I'm glad that part is happening. You know, and we just need to see a little bit more of it. But coming from the state, you know, where the laws, like you mentioned, aren't as punitive. And boy, can we get in there and we work for the government? We love to make laws and write laws, and we become overwhelmed, too bureaucratic sometimes.
I think that elected officials see something that's wrong and they want to help. They want to do something. And the public and the media especially says, what are you going to do? How are you going to fix this problem? So they come up with some bad ideas. I think the red flag laws are something that the governor has proposed to try to stop people from killing each other with guns. Well, how do you find someone who's going to kill somebody the next day? Well, we all agree that that's a mental health issue. In fact, I would say, for the record, if you point a gun at someone and kill them, pull the trigger, there's something wrong with you, because that's not a normal thing for someone to have that level of destructive hatred in their body. So the question is, let's just go find all the dangerous children and let's put them in jail or something ahead of time, get them treatment or whatever. I don't think you can. I don't think you can.
It's a Minority
Way to
Report.
spot those people because, like you said, Gavino, everybody says after one of these incidents, kids seemed okay. Their parents usually think they're okay, and there's no evidence that doctors can interview a kid. They can find out they're angry. I mean, if you wanted to ask every 15-year-old in Texas, are you angry enough to kill somebody? Probably about half of them are. There's somebody who's teasing them or a football player on the other side, something crazy. Most of them don't act on it, obviously. And we can't deny them a constitutional right on the basis of a future crime, a guess.
Mm-hmm.
If we were good at it, it'd be one thing. We don't know how to do that.
There's a question I was going to ask, and I said I better be careful when I ask it. Any anti-immigration bills yet?
Anti-immigration bills. I don't know. I don't follow
Okay,
that.
good. Then there aren't any, because if there were, I'm pretty sure you didn't know about them, that they'd be floating or be coming in.
Well, I think there's one
The
to
way you said it,
build
Gavino, you said
law.
anti-immigration. And I don't know any Republicans who are anti-immigration. I don't know any Republicans who are
I
anti-immigration.
know like two.
I think, well,
You know two.
I haven't met him. I know one person who I would say was a little bit like that, but I think that Republicans who are the type of people who serve on the committees and everything are well-informed people, and they understand that the Texas economy is the way it is because we've had a steady flow of immigrants.
And Patrick has acknowledged that many times.
Right.
I've been to some of y'all's functions, that y'all held, and that's one of the things he always points out. That the Latino population is growing in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And he always mentions that. He doesn't always kind of found that more interesting that he acknowledges and
Right.
talks about that.
Right. And I think that illegal immigration is a huge problem for the illegal immigrants. I think that the people who say, "Oh, let's don't enforce any of those laws. Let's just let those people be," that's basically saying, let's not fix the laws. Let's let them be under the radar where they can't tell their boss that they don't want to work there anymore because they're desperate to stay low profile. They can't start a business. They can't do anything. They live in fear all the time. So I don't know why the Democrats love DACA. DACA stands for deferred action. Deferred action. That just means sword of Damocles is over your head. It means today we're not going to arrest you and deport you. No other promises. No second part of that. I think we need to fix the laws so that kids who were brought here, they didn't know they were breaking
Right.
the law. They came with their parents. They've been here. A lot of them don't speak Spanish at all. Hopefully they do, but if they've only known America their whole lives, I think Democrats and most of the Republicans I know agree that
Well, Governor Perry is the one that kind of embraced that. The DACA here in Texas, after State Representative Domingo out of Dallas. And, so it was a Republican initiative. It's also like the late President Reagan when he was president. And he did the amnesty. And a lot of people commend him for being immigrant friendly, if you will. But he didn't do it because of that. He did it because large ranch owners, farmers in California, called a friend in Washington that happened to be over here and say, "Hey, we need workers. Nobody wants to do this." And he said, "Guess what? Boom, here they are."
And I'm afraid that there are some really very selfish and bad people who are okay with the current situation of having a few million illegal aliens because they can drive over to Home Depot and get somebody to do drywall work for them for $2 an hour.
And you'd be surprised the number of political officials, legislators, and state reps that hire back home.
Well, I hope
Mhm.
not.
Back home, to cut my yard or to clean
I
my
hope not.
house or to be my nanny.
Or clear
They do
tables
it.
at a
Yeah,
at a
I mean,
restaurant. It's
so
wrong. That's why I say it's bad for the
Yeah.
people who are in this limbo. It's not bad for anybody else. It's bad for them.
because see, I know us meeting with Aslulac with Senator Corning, way in the back, and that was one of the things that he felt comfortable with was getting work permits. Okay, issuing out work permits so that, because I'll tell you right now, from the grassroots level, there's probably a misconception on immigration from Mexico. If you're wealthy in Mexico, you don't have an issue with coming over here. You don't have an issue with getting a visa and whatnot and travel. I run into them at Barn Creek Mall all the time. People that look like you, all of a sudden, are talking Spanish. I say, wait a minute, what happened here? The people that come illegally, they come from rural areas, real small towns where education and job opportunities aren't there. That's where they come. That's where the illegal part, where they, get coyotes and into that business. So, but the on the immigration, like I always mention as well, a lot of the students that are in charter schools, the majority are from Mexico.
Yeah.
And so,
Yes,
I tell
that is
my
very
friends, I said,
true.
if y'all want to deport all of them, what are y'all going to do?
Right. No, and that's what people don't. Yeah. If you go into a charter school, most of them are Latinos. Seriously, they
Mhm.
are.
Well, wait a
And
second. There's two different things. Okay, you said they're mostly Latinos. That's
Okay.
a fact that's observable. What percentage of them don't have a legal status here?
there's probably a very large
A
amount.
large amount.
I know a large amount. It's a large amount. Yes.
Because Fairmont, they need workers. Fairmont, guess who? We were talking about this the other day about the pyramids, and we're discussing who built them first, Mexico or Egypt. Pyramid. I said, I don't know, but the trend continues. He says, what do you mean? Well, today the same people, the ancestors that built those buildings, those pyramids, are building today's buildings 20, 40 stories high. When you go out there and you look at the skilled labor, it's not what we call it's not no blue eye, So
Yeah, that's a funny thing. Yeah, you're right. I mean, like a whole bunch of people get together and say we need to build a house. If they all have blue eyes like me, they'll say, well,
We
who
should
are
find
we gonna
someone
get to do it?
yeah, we got the money.
who knows
We
what
have
they're
the money.
doing.
So, but I want to go back to a point you mentioned about your husband being a police officer.
Former.
Oh, former husband?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Get the record straight.
The girl's
But anyway, my nephew is in it was the sheriff's department, and one of the things that I see is that if they were to hire more minorities in the police force, that would help eliminate or erase some of the issues that we face. Because I see my nephew, he has a gun, he's a policeman. But when he comes home or he does, I don't see him, abusing his power, let me put it that way.
Well, that's good because a lot of them, they do change when they become officers, and when they get home, they still think like they run everything. Yes, that happens, but they are definitely these police departments. They're looking to hire minorities. Like I know why my girl's dad got hired. Why he got hired, I know one of the reasons why is because he's Mexican. And they need people like that. In Austin Police Department, they'll hire somebody who isn't white before someone who is, 100%. Because that's just what they need right now.
Or in Travis County, what is it, LQUB or LQ, those are also, that's another population that...
Oh, are you talking about LGBT?
LGBT.
I don't know these letters.
He's like, I know these are somewhere.
I hope I'm getting old, and I got to say, 20 years ago, I thought things were in pretty good shape, and that, my kids went to school with people from all parts of the world with all kinds of complexions, and they just didn't see the difference, and it didn't matter to them. I think if you don't mind me saying something personal about you, the first time we ever
Yes.
talked, you said you grew up in the Woodlands, and you went off to college, and people said, well, are you black or are you white? And you were like,
Yeah, that's the first time that I ever even started noticing the people's different ethnicities was because they started asking me. Like, it's just something I never paid attention to until I got to college. So many people, they would say, "What are you? What are you?" What?
yeah, and that's just that's something that older generations think of, the younger generations don't. I thought things were in pretty good shape. I sure hope we don't end up, as I grow older and older, with a situation where we have to have a squad of LGBT police officers to go arrest the LGBT people so that they, respect them and all that. And we have to find, we got a gang. They've got some Hispanic members and some white members and some black members. We need a squad of 3 different police officers to go and arrest them.
Or white collar crime,
Yeah.
So honestly, I don't know if that's the way we fix systemic racism. If we believe that systemic racism exists within the department, I work with families on the side doing CPS reform, helping families who are undergoing CPS investigations.
That's Child Protective Services.
Yes, Child Protective Services. Sorry, alphabet soup. And I believe strongly that there is systemic racism in that system, and it doesn't matter what color the caseworker is. I think basically what happens is you have poor people who don't know who to call. They don't know that they have the right to an attorney. They don't know that they have the right to remain silent. And they don't understand the process. It's so incredibly backwards, and I could spend a whole hour talking about it. But anyway, when black children are taken far more frequently than white children, it doesn't matter what color the caseworker is. Usually the white person will have someone yelling at the caseworker, whether it's a friend or family, political connection, something like that. But if the judge confirms that, you can't take away the white person's kid, but you can go ahead and take away the black person's kid, then that caseworker gets it confirmed in their head that the black people are more guilty than the white people. And so having officers go around who are different colors, I don't think helps, because they're going to receive the same training. And if the training doesn't change, their mentality is not going to change. It's an authority, power trip thing. And so when black people are arrested and then they don't have the resources maybe to fight those things, then that systemic racism gets confirmed in their head. It doesn't matter what color they are, in my opinion. I don't know.
And you know what you're talking about. You've seen a lot of these cases.
Well, I've seen the numbers of black children that are taken, minority children, that are taken far more often than white children. And there's no way that any reasonable person can say, yes, black children are definitely abused 10 times more than white children.
And that's where the cultural part comes in, because raising children in different cultures, in one culture it may be acceptable, where the other one is a totally different reaction. And if you play ignorant to that cultural difference, yes, you find yourself continuously feeling even more comfortable sending minority or black children, through this process. Because here, although, and this is also happens with poor Anglo families, because if they come to a family that is a little bit educated, Anglo, they're not gonna allow it to go this far. I remember one of our family's youngster got into trouble, and they took him and interrogated him as a teenager. And I said, I thought the parent was supposed to be with you all the time. And they said no.
No.
They took him in and they interrogated that poor child. At the end, he was not about 12 years old.
Yeah. They can take any child out of school if they want to, and interrogate them without the parent, and without the parent even knowing that happened.
And that's scary.
Very.
especially in a democratic society.
Yeah.
You know, where, yeah, it's,
So the whole system is civil when it should be criminal. If you hurt a child, you should go to jail. But it is not. The burden of proof is on you to prove your innocence,
mhm.
not on the
Absolutely.
state. Absolutely not.
We are running out of time, and I want to. We didn't discuss this, but I want to ask you another question that's not related to the legislature. We have had a number of subjects on the show over the years, and one of them that we've touched on in the past year is homelessness, and we've talked a lot about the Community First effort that's going on out here in Austin, and though you live in Arlington, you came down and tell us what you did with Community First and tell us what your thought is about that effort.
They had a workshop that lasted for 2 or 3 days, and they basically went through the entire process of how they started, their philosophy, and how to implement it wherever you are. So there were people from all over the United States, and it was really cool. I love their philosophy. I love the idea of treating humans like they're humans, and like they have value, giving them choices. I think it's something that should be implemented everywhere because government just sucks at helping people.
Well, to add on that topic, I was listening this morning to the radio, and they talked about how there's something new being presented. I forget what the program is called, but basically they're going after business owners and real estate people, and if a building is going to sit for a couple of years before they use it, they want the business owners to rent out their building that is just sitting there to homeless people. What do you think about that?
Well, we had an activist. I mean, if someone makes you aware of a group of people who would like to give you money to use your property, I'm okay with that.
But how do you think that affects like businesses around and stuff?
Well, I understand. You would say to yourself, I don't know if this makes any sense to me because I'm trying to get Starbucks or Talbot's or somebody to rent this space from me, and if I'll say this in front of any audience, if it's going to look like 7th Street does at Arch, and they're going to be just people like lying down on the curb for 2 or 3 blocks in every direction, that's not a good look. That's not a good thing.
They said it is hard to evict people once they start paying rent to live somewhere.
Oh, sure.
So even if there are plans for the building in a year,
90 days.
they made it sound like it would be hard to
It'll
get
take
rid
90
of them.
days to get out. 30 for the announcement, 30 for the appeal, and then 30 another. So yeah, you eventually end up 90 days without no rental income, and you cannot turn the lights off. You can't do anything, and if you do, then you get arrested. And I'm sharing with you what I've tried to do as a landlord on some of these properties or renters where we fall into that situation, and even to the point that I reported them conducting drug activity. It's still, they said no, he's there, and as long as you have not finished the court process, they can stay there. And I said, wow.
Is this something that they're asking people to do, or that the city's like, hey, we're going to do
asking.
this?
Oh yeah, asking
Okay.
people to do. They've gone to the city and presented the program. I cannot remember what it's called. For some reason, I feel like it has to do with one of the people we had on this show before, but I can't remember what it's
one
called.
of the activists, and I'm embarrassed that I can't remember his name. I heard his name again just recently. Said we don't have a homelessness problem. We have plenty of space for everybody, and if everybody took in one homeless person, everything would be okay. And he said, everyone here has a spare bedroom, and they don't have anybody living in the yard. And I was renting a room from someone, and we didn't have any spare room, and
Yeah, I don't have
another
a
guy
spare
named
room.
Gary was living in the backyard of that house. So
Is that the
in
one
that
that
case,
had that lizard or whatever?
Yeah.
yeah. What is his name? And,
That's
well,
Pokey's friend.
yeah,
That's one of Pokey's friends.
if Pokey sends out a runner, we have 3 minutes left in the
minutes.
show, and maybe we'll be able to mention the guy's name because he was a great guest.
Yeah, he really was. He was good.
But I think like in European, let's say Germany and all those, is there a big homeless issue there? And I think that's what they do in those countries.
Well,
No
I
idea.
don't know.
there is this idea that we do everything wrong here, and Europe's got it all solved. I would like to say, for the record, that Norway is basically Saudi Arabia. In the sense that it has huge natural resources, so everybody there is uniformly rich, so they can do lots of things that we can't do here, and we are struggling. But you and I have seen a whole lot of progress in our lifetimes on all these race issues. They're at a time when all the sheriffs were white and they could do whatever they wanted to, and there were no body cams, and probably a lot of stuff happened that.
Yeah, I mean, I tell people, look, Austin, because it's Austin, you see a lot of racism. But if you go to Laredo, towns where heavily Latinos, well, then there's no, race issue. It's more of a class issue.
We got Pokey here.
Do we have
to
any
make
announcements?
And we got Mike Lee. Mike Lee is in the house.
Fine.
Yeah, well, the
Announcements,
anyway.
stay involved with the AISD,
Thank you for having
with the
me.
AISD discussion, because they are looking at closing 12 elementary schools.
Oh yeah.
So we
Yeah,
need to
because they
stay on
only got
top.
$1 billion a year ago. So naturally,
That's it.
once they got $1 billion, they said they had to close a bunch of schools. It's just
So
And they're spending
We're
their
working
money
on
on
it next month.
renaming a high school. Like they voted to rename it, so now it's Northeast High, and that's not cheap to rename a high school.
Well, with 20 seconds left, I appreciate y'all coming on.
all right. Well, thank you for having us.
You went for the live Bethador.
I'm just
Marijuana legislation.
There you go. All right.
It's the funniest of all. We'll be back next week. We got 2 more shows this month. And we are going to look into the school. There's a school board election coming up.
Look at all these.